Love the cough right off the bat. We're professionals here. I'm just kidding. I am so nervous, guys. Welcome into Cincinnati Soccer Talk podcast. This is your temporary, that's why I'm nervous, one time only host, Coach Brad Goff, and we have a lot to talk about. Not only is there a game coming up this week, but the season's starting, and we have to get to some predictions. So you all have something that you can hold over our heads, some bulletin board material, so you can know for sure that none of us have any idea what we're doing here. And before all of that, we have a talismanic MVP quality attacking midfielder who has taken issue with the general manager to talk about. And we need to discuss that. Now, am I talking about the one leaving town or the one just getting here? You're going to have to find out. But first, I want to bring in my co-hosts. Welcome in, and thanks for being here. The one and only Brian Biedenbach.
Hey, Coach. Thanks for having me tonight. I'll tell you what. I was in Indianapolis this weekend for a volleyball tournament, right? And I wore my Cincinnati Soccer Talk hat, not knowing my son's team from Fort Wayne, Indiana, was going to be playing almost exclusively volleyball teams from Cincinnati. And I felt a little awkward because I love my Cincinnati teams, but just not when my son's playing against them. So I'm glad to be back home. Glad to be here talking FC Cincinnati tonight.
We are glad to have you, and I will make it known that Brian will root against his blood relatives if it means cheering on Cincinnati. That's what I got from that story. Yeah, but of course, I wasn't listening that well.
Yeah, something like that.
Thanks for being here. Jeremy Lance, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good now that I coughed with my mic on. I thought I had it turned up. My bad. We're here. Like, the season starts this week. We have actual games this week. It's I would say the long winter's not over because it literally just snowed yesterday. But actual soccer, like we've made it. The off season is over. I'm excited.
I am as well. I'm excited. We have a lot to talk about. But first, we have to bring in the anchor of our crew because apparently he has the best hat of the bunch. Jason Ashcraft, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Today is my mom's birthday, so happy birthday to my mom. And when I was talking to her on the phone before we got together to do this podcast, and she said, I sometimes watch that. So happy birthday, Mom. I hope she's watching. And Rupesh, I don't know where I got this hat from. I got this.
It just appeared on your head.
It did. Yeah, I got it right before FC Cincinnati's very first MLS game, and I cannot for the life of me remember where I got it from. Sorry.
Well, we are going to get our crack team of research specialists that's behind the scenes, making sure we don't get any of our data wrong. Any of you who tune in regularly know we don't actually have that, to get on where Jason got that hat from. But until then, we're going to hope that Jason's mom is warm on her birthday because temps have plummeted. And we have warned you all year long to keep things cozy, just like Jason's mom, by using Apollo Home. I don't know if Jason's mom uses Apollo Home, but I'm just assuming here because I bet she's cozy. Peace of mind is worth the $29 it will cost you for a tune-up, y'all. Give our great sponsor a call and get them on your schedule soon. Guys, we have player news, big player news. We have Evander signing with FC Cincinnati for a purported $12 million and some tiny little add-on fee. Portland does retain a bit of a sell-on. We don't know how much. And with that Evander coming in, of course, we have our former MVP, Lucho Acosta, going out the door. He signed with FC Dallas. FC Cincinnati sold him for $5 million plus an additional $1 million in add-ons if he hits them. So I wanted to start this conversation by looking at the financial side of things, because somebody asked me, it seems like we sold an MVP for $5 million, maybe $6 million, and bought a not quite MVP for $12 million. So did FC Cincinnati get fleeced here? Did FC Cincinnati get enough for MVP, perennial MVP candidate, one-time MVP, Lucho Acosta? Jeremy?
I think all things considered, they did. I mean, you don't bring in Lucho with the mindset that you're going to sell for a profit down the road. He's either going to wind down his career and spend the rest of the time with you, or something wild like this offseason that happens and he has to go, and it's never going to be this is how we're going to make our money, you a sell-on thing. This is not one of those guys. He's not young. He's kind of already been around a little bit. So considering I don't think it was ever the plan be able to get, 5 million plus, that's good. That's fine. We were able to use it and reallocate it right away. It was good. I loved it.
Yeah, and let's not forget there was some question about whether they'd get anything for him or
Right.
much at all.
Well, I mean, this is MLS, where we've had a history of big name players coming onto a team, wanting to get out, and literally getting it to where the team just has to rip up the contract and let them walk. So the fact that we didn't have to do that and we actually got money, this is great. This is great.
And it seemed to be heading that direction for a while when teams weren't fighting over Lucho Acosta like I think maybe he thought they would be.
I think that was his plan.
Right. Absolutely. So the fact that we didn't rip up that contract, take a bath on it, that we got something as much as $5 million for him was, I think it was a good move.
I think the kids call that being too thirsty. Lucho was. So he didn't get any calls. Nobody was swiping right, or I don't know which direction. I don't know these things. But what about Evander? $12 million for a guy who is meant to just replace what FC Cincinnati already had in Lucho Acosta. Did the team overpay for Evander, Brian?
I don't think so. I think he had an offer from FC Dallas that was right in that $12 million range as well. So that was what the market was for this guy. He was, I believe, third in MVP voting this last year. But more than anything else, I love the fact that this much money is being spent inside the league to keep these players here. I think it's going to help the MLS. It's going to help the product on the field. And to be honest, it shows me that our front office wants to win. They weren't satisfied with the Shield a couple of years ago. They want to keep pushing and keep going. And the fact that they dropped $16 million for Kevin Denke in the offseason, and we spent $12 million on Evander just now, I think it shows me, a front office that is really eager to win some games and put a product on the field and up the game, not just in Cincinnati, but across the MLS.
Exactly.
Yeah, and speaking of that front office, Jason, I heard you chime in there. Like, they're not even just taking the money from Lucho and applying it straight to Evander. They're actually investing even more in the squad than it seems, right?
Yeah, I mean, and you get the GAM payout with this, which is huge. From what I understand, we're getting the GAM payout. If you were to go on the open market and look for a player to fill that role, you were going to be spending $10 to $15 million anyway. You might as well look for someone who's already familiar with the league, who wants to move on to a different program. And it is kind of interesting that MLS created this selling players within the league thing that they have now, and we're really the first team to kind of go out there and make a splash with it. So if you look at it, the front office made a big splash with Kevin Denke with what at the time was the biggest transfer fee in MLS history, and now we open up the in MLS transfer market, and we're making a big splash with a $12 million transfer fee for Evander. I think it shows that this is a front office that wants to win and kind of knows how to play the game, so to speak.
Yeah, and that the fact that they just didn't take the entire Lucho Acosta sale and just buy Evander with that, but they actually converted some of that to GAM, to funny money, which should help them be able to add even more strength to the roster, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I get a lot of questions, even on here right now, about how this is going to change the tactics. And of course, we need to talk about that. So let's talk about how it's going to look on the field. So first, in attack, the thing that we know about Evander is, unlike Lucho, he is a more predictable player. And I don't mean that as a negative. I just mean that he is the kind of number 10 who's going to pop up in the areas you expect number 10s to be in. He's a great passer of the ball. He can hit shots from distance. He does a lot of the things Lucho does, but he does it without having to be so, let's just say, off the cuff with everything. I keep saying with Lucho, it's Argentinian street soccer out there. He doesn't even know what he's going to do. So you have to be reliant on figuring it out as it goes. Evander will allow the team to attack with more structure, right? They'll be able to find him in space. Do you see the attack changing much more meaningfully outside of that, Brian?
No, I think for the most part, Coach, I agree with that. I think that the predictability you talk about, I think is good. The structure, I agree with. I relate it to, playing basketball, and you got a point guard that you rebound the ball, and you're always looking for that point guard to start your attack. that's a lot easier to do on a small basketball court than it is, a full-size soccer pitch. And so that's what Lucho Acosta was. And not that Evander can't be that, but it gives us, I think, more balance going forward. We've got Luca Orashano looking for the ball now. We're guessing probably going to slot inside to the middle to play next to Evander there. So we've got some other options going forward. But Coach, I think about an episode you did with Justin Hoyt that I think I was backstage producing that episode of Talking Tactics. And he said something about when you play with, he was talking about Ledesma at the time when he played with Ledesma, but he equated it to Lucho. And I may have said this on another show here recently is the thing that stuck out to me about that conversation. He said, when you play with a guy like Ledesma, we'll say a guy like Lucho right now, that doesn't always know what he's going to do with the ball, that's so good on the ball, that can attack players, can beat players, can pass. He said, you just have to make that run and know that sometimes you're going to get the ball and sometimes you're not, because he doesn't know where he's going with it. And that, I think that was always the case with Lucho on the pitch. It was, should I make this run? Should I not make this run? And when they did make the run, sometimes they didn't get the ball because he just didn't want to pass to him. Right. I don't know much about Evander and his interactions with our guys at FCC and the inter squad relationships, but I do think he's going to be a guy that's going to see the run, that's going to see the predictability of our wingers attacking or coming through the midfield and give us something a little bit more, like you said, structured and predictable going forward. So I do think it balances us out a little bit.
Yeah, and then when the guy makes the run, if he's wide open, I think he will get the ball more often, whereas sometimes Lucho Acosta saw somebody running through wide open and thought, oh, that wide open guy will distract the defense so I can meg a few more players.
Right.
This idea of structure, I want to talk about also how it applies first to defense, and then we'll get to the defensive side of the ball, because the other thing with Lucho that you found is not only would he pop up, at the midline, all the way on the left touch line, waiting for the ball. Sometimes he would get the ball there. The team would pour forward and he would try to beat a midfielder or a fullback on the dribble instead of playing the ball into open space or the team running forward. And if you turn the ball over there with everybody running forward, it creates counter-attacking opportunities. And I think we'll see that less from Evander. But before everybody thinks this is all just going to be great and better, I do worry a little bit about the defensive side of the ball, because like Lucho or don't like Lucho, the one thing he did really well is picked his moments to be part of the press extremely well. He was really good at reading the play, knowing the pressing cues and starting that press. And Evander didn't have to do that for Portland. Now, I don't know if he can or can't. That I have no idea, but it's not a role that he's played. And then the other thing we see from Evander defensively is because he plays more structured, he wants to be on the ball in the final third. Lucho wanted to be on the ball anywhere, right? So he would drop into the defensive third to try to get on the ball and then build forward, which meant he was also back there defensively quite a bit. I'm not sure we're going to see Evander tracking back as far as Lucho did. Again, maybe that's a Portland thing. Maybe Pat will say, Evander, we want you back here, and he'll do it. It's yet to be seen. But I think the defensive side of the ball is actually where I worry about this change, oddly enough, from Lucho to Evander. Does anybody share that concern with me?
I'm not as concerned as you are, but I see where your concern is definitely coming from. I think I would counter that with the fact that we did bring in some defensive help this offseason. So, and I know we're going to talk about this a little later, but we do have Lukas Engel coming in to play left back that might give Luka a little bit more room to maybe drop back a little bit more defensively, but still stay in the midfield. And like you said it, Coach, maybe Portland just wasn't asking him to do that. And this might be a case of he's perfectly capable. We just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, so I guess the overall feel with Rupesh's question is, how does this change the tactics? Is I'm not sure it actually changes the tactics as much as it makes the tactics function more like it should, as opposed to you're relying on artists to make magic. Now you're like, instead of always playing jazz out there, sometimes we're just going to get some nice power chords that we can get a lead vocal behind, and we can just rock that way. I don't know if that made any sense at all. I actually don't know about that much about music anyway, but hey, as I've proven time and time again, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Sounded good.
Thanks, Jeremy. Let's just keep rolling with weird, tortured metaphors then. Here is, I think, something I'm concerned about that I would love some of your guys' thoughts on is the difference between Evander and Lucho off the field, because Evander left Portland in actually very similar circumstances to how Lucho has left Cincy, right? Evander posted on his Instagram a goodbye to the Portland fans. I'm going to read a quote from that post. Quote, "No, this was never about money. I never put that above the respect I have for this club and this city. In fact, I sacrificed a lot just to be able to move forward. But in the end, I wasn't given a choice. What hurts the most isn't leaving. It's knowing that you, the fans who sing and support this team no matter what, don't even know half of what really happened to me." Now, guys, if you're like me, you're hearing shades of Lucho Acosta here. Lucho used the word hurt to describe what happened to him. He said he was being forced out the back door. So my question, Jeremy, is FCC just trading one mercurial headache for another?
So I think a couple weeks ago when we first talked about this being the potential move of bringing in Evander, that was the one red flag I was kind of waving like, wait a minute, this guy, he's kind of throwing a fit and, having a tantrum of his own that now is kind of spiraled into this whole thing that it leads to him having to leave Portland. Does that mean that he's going to come in here and immediately create problems? Possibly. I'm going to be optimistic in the standpoint that, hey, can you just at least not do that for the first 2 years? Give us 2 years before you start, kind of throwing your toys. We'll take that because this is MLS. You have these big stars come in and they're really excited when they first get there. And then at some point they're either Lucho or I don't know if he's Marco Royce, who's like, what is this place? What is this thing? So as long as we can get some good, a season or two out of him before that happens, I'm good. As long as we can just get something good out of him, because I don't know if he's just going to somehow change. Portland, there's always been some questions for an organization. Just there's been some cultural issues that whole organization has had as of late. I think we have a much better culture from the locker room and club standpoint here in Cincinnati. Can he adapt to that? Does he push against that? Does he kind of just go with the flow till he gets pissed off? I think it all remains to be seen, but I think we'll be able to hold that off for a bit.
And Jason, from a public relations standpoint, you talked about this a lot, about these things. Do you see the similarities in those posts, and does that worry you, or do you actually say no, he's kind of saying the right things, or how's that look to you?
I definitely see the similarities. You're 100% right there. There is a similarity there. I think where one of the differences is, from what I've seen with Evander versus what we've seen with Lucho, is it didn't seem like Evander was telling two different stories to the different audiences he was talking to. And if you look at the things that Portland Timbers fans are saying online, they're kind of taking his side. I mean, like Jeremy mentioned, there's a lot of stuff that's gone down in Portland. Google is free. Just look it up. We don't have time to get into it, but it's not been great over there in the Rose City. So I can 100% see, why people in Cincinnati would read those comments and go, "Oh no," but I wouldn't be too worried about it, just based on how he's acted this entire time versus how Lucho has been kind of wishy-washy on what he's trying to accomplish.
Brian, put a lid on this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know a whole lot about Portland, right? And their organization, other than what I've heard, the stories here and there. You hear, I agree with Jason. Lucho's kind of been telling two sides of the story, but here's the problem, I think, or here's the difference maybe, is that Lucho started writing his check at the end of last season and didn't give the front office time to put some pieces in place around him. So he was out before Kevin Denke was even in the works, right? And so if he would have, I think, been patient to see what is this next season going to look like? What is this team going to, I know what I've lost. My buddies are gone. And that's what he started citing at the beginning of this season. But what is this front office going to bring in to put around me and see what we can do? I don't know that Portland's done that with Evander, but now Evander has the benefit of coming in to a team that has had some big signings this offseason, him being kind of maybe the crown jewel of that, maybe Kevin Denke, I don't know. But he's coming into a team that has proven that we want to pay, we want to win, and we're going to do what we can to support our players on the field. And so maybe that attitude has changed a little bit. He talks about the fans in Portland singing and cheering, whatever. He's got that in Cincinnati, especially with Lucho leaving, right? Our fan base has kind of turned their backs a little bit, sort of, on Lucho, and they're eager for Evander to come in. So he's coming into a fan base that's open arms. Come on, let's see what you can do with this team that we put around you. And so I don't think we're going to see it right away. If we see it down the road, I don't know, but I think he's going to be excited to be here.
And to Jeremy's point about getting a couple good years and then see what happens, like when you feel wanted, let's not forget that Chris Albright and Pat Noonan didn't even bring Lucho into the team, right? So when you feel wanted, when the front office has gone out and got you, when you have fans ready to chant your name MVP in place of their former MVP, that can do a lot for at least a couple years. Let's ride that wave. But Evander, very exciting new chapter. People with their Lucho Acosta jerseys are wondering what to do with this, but we know this discussion is actually only a precursor to what the fans have all really come here to discuss, which is Noah Adnan has signed for FC Cincinnati 2, guys. How excited are you for... Actually, we do have some other good stuff to talk about. Jason teased it before. We have Lukas Engel officially announced being picked up from Middlesbrough on loan with a purchase option. I think this is low-key one of the biggest moves FCC needed to make this offseason. I've been vocal with how left wing back was a position of weakness, because sure, Orishano was good going forward, but he was a disaster defensively. Obviously, we had a similar thing with Barrial. Barrial was maybe a little more, gave a little more effort defensively than Orishano did, but he still was no defender back there. What we know of Lukas Engel, which is not a lot, is that he is probably the best true left-sided defender we've had in quite a while. Now, that does not mean he is a great defender. His defensive numbers are not fantastic, but they're much better than taking a young winger who just wants to go score goals and being like, yeah, you can play defense over there. Just try to, kick the ball away from the guy who's dribbling at you, right? Engel has done this before in the English Championship. So, Jason, I want to know, does that excite you, thinking like, oh, well, we might not have as much going forward, but we're going to be more sound defensively? As a coach, I'm like, ooh, that's great. But what do you hear when I tell you that about Engel?
I'm excited about him. I like you said, low-key, this might be one of the better signings we've had in the offseason. I mean, if you look at the championship in England is slightly above Major League Soccer, I would say. I mean, the bottom of the championship where the budgets are kind of low are about MLS level, but then you've got obviously parachute payments that make the top very, very top heavy. I think it's a good move. He's got that experience playing against tough competition, tough physical competition in the championship. We needed some help on the left wing back position. And I think it's going to open up a lot more opportunity for other players looking at Luka, especially, to go and maybe do something a little different. And if I'm Coach Noonan, to have, this piece on my roster, I'm not a coach, I'm not the tactical guy, but I'd be salivating with the little bits of changes that I could be making now that we have someone that we can rely on to fill in on that position. And now, if there's a day where maybe he can't play, maybe Luka can drop back. Maybe you can put somebody else in. But that depth piece of it too is going to be huge this season.
Yeah. Oh, hey, hold on, guys. I got to take this. Oh, yes, Mr. Garber. Yes. Jason just said that MLS was every bit as equivalent to the English Championship. Yep. I will have him send his address so you can send the check. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I've been called a shill before. I will take it.
One thing that I hear when I hear Jason talk about that, Brian, is that it sounds like, since we're not going to have this big attacking force on the left, that we might actually see the team be a little more balanced between sides.
Yeah, we've had Barrial in recent years. We've had Orishano down that left flank, just streaking down that side. That's where our attack has come from. And those are the guys, even with Assad out there in this last season, that Lucho was always connected with on the left flank there. So yeah, I think again with the structure that Evander may bring in that midfield, the defensive prowess, hopefully, that Lukas Engel brings. That it's not necessarily going forward, but he gives us some stability there so that, if we have a wing back streaking up, there's not an open sideline, that is exposed that, our left center back now has to step over. So yeah, I do think it's going to be a little bit more balanced. Now, I know we're going to talk a little bit later about formation change, and I think Lukas Engel gives us some balance whether we change or we stay the way we are, right? He's not going to be expected, as Jason said, to go forward as much. It'll free up Luca Orishano to get up there a little bit more and maybe do some things with Evander. But even if we shift to maybe a 4-back system where he's not expected to go back, it still gives us that stability against the back line and puts potentially another midfielder or another striker up top to give us more going forward, because we've got a guy that we know is solid in that defensive role and is not expected to go forward and make things happen.
Yeah, and the thing that I noticed about him in that one preseason match we did get to watch is that he plays that left wing back role more like a midfielder than a winger. In other words, he is capable of getting the ball under pressure and finding an open teammate out there instead of always being reliant on trying to dribble somebody or beat somebody up the wing and play vertically, like sometimes when we've had wingers over there.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed last year is, and when Barreal actually 2 years ago started picking this up, is, we want to get to the end line. We want to get to the touch line and cross those balls back. But there were times that cross, if we crossed it earlier, it looked like we had guys getting in that were in position making the runs, that if we waited too long, and Lukas Engel not going forward and expected to get to that touch line before he sends the ball across may benefit us than a guy like Kevin Denke that's making streaky runs behind the back line to get in with an earlier cross.
Yeah, I love me some early crosses. I teased with the Noah Adnan to FC Cincinnati 2 news, but FC Cincinnati did also land a U22 center back. Center back's a heady position. Throw a kid back there, even if a kid that's rated pretty highly, like Gilberto Flores. Jeremy, a U22 center back, what even makes a good season for him? What do we expect, or should we expect from a guy like that?
I mean, I think we should expect him to get a decent amount of minutes, honestly. I can definitely see him being someone who, I wouldn't say plays regularly. I think some of that will have to do with, Hadebe. How does he perform? When do the, 2/3 of our defensive core return from injury? That stuff kind of will play itself out. For the U22 initiative guy to come in, you could put the bar at, like, do we just need him to be better than Ian Murphy was? Is he just kind of come in and be that young guy that is going to have to kind of just fill that depth role? I think the bar is set higher than that, right? For a U22 initiative. I don't think it's going to set too high where we expect him to be the guy on the back. We have plenty of the guys on the back line. We're fine there. We just need him to, when called upon, just show up. And, we did that with Ian Murphy when he was a draft pick, a very unproven talent, right? Coming from college. And I would say Ian Murphy, he had definitely had some bad moments, but he was very serviceable in that role. I think what we're getting from Flores is definitely an upgrade from that, and someone who's going to come in young, but still probably with a little higher pedigree. And I think he can contribute pretty well.
Yeah, you mentioned him having to play a lot. He might need to start off the bat depending on health. Yep. And so we are going to get into a little bit of a lineup talk next. But first, I want to recognize our other show sponsor, Beyond Exercise. Beyond Exercise is a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps people stay active and injury-free. In fact, they help some of our local MLS, MLS Next, and FCC Academy players with their health and performance needs. They helped Justin Hoyt out when he was down at the 7-on-7 tournament and got injured. So you should check out their suite of services at gobeyondexercise.com. So we're getting ready to start the season, guys. We have a game. FC Cincinnati has a game coming up on Wednesday night. And when I was looking at the lineup, it seemed pretty nailed on. Pretty much most of those guys are written in pen. So I'm going to run through what a lineup might look like if they don't change formations, which is the key that some of you introduced. And then we're going to talk about whether we want to see that lineup or see a formation change or what. I think Roman is going to be the goalkeeper, not going out on a limb there. The three center backs left to right are going to be Hadebe, Miles Robinson, and then that right center back is up in the air until Matt Miazga is healthy. I think it might be Alvis Powell. That's what we saw in the preseason game we got to watch. Probably when Miazga comes back, he slides in the middle, Miles slides to the right. We talked about Lukas Engel over on the left at wing back. DeAndre Yedlin's a pretty nailed on starter over at right wing back. I would imagine Buka and Obi will sit in the middle as like dual sixes or a 6 and an 8. Which just means when I use those numbers, we just basically mean they're going to be midfielders with defensive responsibilities. If you only have defensive responsibilities, you're more of a 6. And if you're more of a box-to-box, defend first, but get forward, you're an 8. From there, you expect Evander to be ahead of them as what we would call a number 10 or an attacking midfielder. And then Orishano will be up there. Maybe you think he's a forward. Maybe he's more like a dual 10 alongside Evander. And Kevin Denke leads the line. But as I said, does FC Cincinnati see a formation change? And if so, how does the lineup change, Brian?
Yeah, I'm going to go. I've been the guy that in previous shows has said, I think we stick with the lineup we have. I think for Roman Celentano's sake and the change in the back line we've had last year, just for some consistency, I think that would be good for him. But I'm going to change my tune on this one. And I don't know if it's going to throw a wrench in anything else here on the show, but I think we've got some pieces that we could change our lineup a little bit. As you know, as I mentioned, if we go to a 4-back with Lukas Engel there on the left, I think it gives us an opportunity. We've got Obi and we've got Buka there at the 6 and the 8. We've got the dual 10s, as you said, with Evander and Luka Orishano. We got Kevin Denke up top, but I think it gives us an opportunity to throw in a second striker as well and play that Brazilian box, that 4-2-2-2 up top. And who that other one is it going to be Corey Baird, and who can drop in potentially underneath Kevin Denke? Could it be Adado Valenzuela and give him some opportunity to play not just the 10 role, but he shined a little bit in that 9 role last year when he had a partner up there. So I think we could see that. I don't know if we'll start with that because of just for some consistency and build some chemistry with some of the new guys. But I wouldn't be surprised if soon after we get into the start of the season, we see a little bit of a lineup shakeup and a formation change there. Not a lineup shakeup, just formation change.
Jason, you think that Brian's hitting on something? The lineup's going to be changing, or the formation's going to change, would allow him to get another attacker on the field. But if you do that, you would end up at some point in the season with a lot of money and central defenders on the bench. Do you think we have a prayer of seeing something like that?
Yeah, I think there's a slight possibility in seeing something like that. Like, I was kind of like leaning towards Brian, thinking, yeah, we will definitely see a formation change. But after Coach hearing you lay it out, I think we don't really see too much shifting of the formation this season. Now, for the game down in Honduras for the CCC, I think just throw that out the window, because I don't think that formation and that lineup is anything that's going to be indicative of what we're going to see come May and June, because of just when it is, where it is, and all of that. But, you know, I don't think we need to make too many changes to the lineup. It's kind of set, or the formation, I should say. It seems to be set unless something radically changes.
Jeremy, put a lid on this part of the conversation for us. Talk some sense into us about this formation. Pat Noonan doesn't ever keep anything the same, right? He's just going to change everything every game. So why are we even bothering to talk about this?
You just took the words out of my mouth. Who cares? Pat's just going to be just throwing out new lineups, doing new things. Oh, this guy's out. We're doing this now. Let's bring that goofy sword formation out. Let's do all the fun stuff. I mean, after what we saw last year with never the same lineup and just the fluidity that Pat was working with, I don't expect any of that to just suddenly come to a screeching halt. So I'm not wasting much sleep on the formation. I think he's got a little more to work with as far as flexibility when you don't have to have the entire world orbit around your number 10. who's just going to kind of do his own thing anyways. So I think it opens the door up for Pat to really, I don't know. I mean, he really kind of flex his coaching muscles and show what he has as far as a tactician.
For sure, that's what excites me, is not that they will change formations, because I don't think they will, not basically, but that they can, in different parts of games. Clifford Adams is pretty sure that we're going to end up in yellow card suspension accumulation territory pretty quickly. So perhaps he will have to flex those muscles, those coaching muscles, as you said, Jeremy, as the season goes on. And with a guy, just that one position, Lukas Engel, having an actual defender over there gives them that possibility, which I think is exciting.
But the brilliance, Coach, if I could jump in, the brilliance though of this lineup is, as Clifford said, we had a lot of yellow card accumulation in the last match, but you get that, and you can bring Kubo still off the bench. He's not the guy that's starting and getting all the cards. He's a guy that's going to bring some energy and maybe avoid a card because someone else ahead of him just got one. I think we've got some flexibility with this lineup and this roster that's pretty deep.
You hit the nail on the head, Brian. I think this is the deepest roster FC Cincinnati has had heading into a season, which doesn't say a ton because they haven't had a lot of depth. But when you have guys like Brian Tawanunga, Kubo on the bench, Halsey can back up on either side. Corey Baird has shown promise at other teams, though we haven't seen that at FC Cincinnati. Santos as a late game sub. There are a lot of guys that you actually could foresee coming on and changing the game, as opposed to a Malik Pinto that you're like, oh, he can come down and do a job for you and kind of just hold things together, right? But speaking of that depth, do they still have work to do? We talked about them taking the full $3 million in GAM conversion from the Lucho sale. So they probably have some money floating around there. You should go and check out our roster tracker on CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com, and you can kind of see that in real time as we think it's happening. What would you guys want to see them, or what do you anticipate them needing to add in the summer, or maybe in this late part of the transfer window as we go? We'll start with you, Jason.
Why not? Let's add another center back. I don't think we have enough. I think there is an opportunity there maybe to pick up another U22 player in the summer, depending on what happens with this GAM conversion, what happens with Luka. I know he's angling for some more money. But really, honestly, I would like to see some more backup on the right side of the defense. Somebody that can fill in case DeAndre or Alvis go down. That I think that was kind of one of our weaknesses as well last year, was just both sides of the back line. And if you can find somebody that can fill some solid minutes, maybe a U22 player looking to make a name for themselves, that would be a good addition.
You agree with that, Jeremy, or do you have another spot you're thinking of?
No, I think Jason's right on. The past 2 years have shown us you can never have enough center backs. We've burned through them and had to, kind of plug and play so often over the past 2 seasons. When we thought, even last season, when we were like, oh, we finally have some really good depth at center back, and then the leg falls off of 2 of our guys. So I think center back is always going to be that move. I don't think that I don't think they have to do anything right now. I think you settle that money, you see how things play out, and when summer comes, you either add that depth at the center back position, or obviously if something else kind of presents itself as an issue, you just kind of attack it then.
What about you, Brian? Do you have a different thought?
Yeah, I'm going to flip to the left side of the field and just go back to, Jason said it on the right side. We've got Yedlin and Powell. On the left side, we have Engel and right? Like who is that other person there if Engel goes down? So I think we look for another left back that maybe can be a little bit more attacking minded. I know Orshana can do that, but I think we're really going to like him pushing forward up top in the midfield, higher up the field. So I think we go for a left back that maybe has a little bit more attack minded. So we get late in the game and we need to push forward. We need to get a goal. We can get somebody streaking down that left side that can do that.
Yeah, and I'm going to kind of end this conversation and say that that's kind of where I am too, Brian. But I want it to be like a true, like a winger, actually. I want an attacking player. I really want one of those guys on both sides because I want the ability to switch to a 3-4-3 late in games if we need to really push the issue, or to take an Engel out and put in the the Barreal type of player over there at wingback who you're not really expecting to play, or maybe that's Orshano's job. And so maybe Jason is right being at a right wing back, but a winger, a real attacking force. Because DeAndre Yedlin, he gets up and down the field, but he doesn't really produce in that spot. So I think a real attacker that can do a job as a winger or a wing back is my pick.
I do wonder if we'll see that, right? If late in games you do see Orshano get punted out to the left and you bring in a Baird or somebody up top, I think you could see a lot of that early on, especially if, the chips are down and they're trying to get one late.
Yeah, and Baird has had some experience in that right wing position. I mean, I personally watched it at RSL. He can do that. He's not the best at it, but he is serviceable in that position.
Didn't he get a start late in the season as a left wing back?
Left wing back, yeah.
So he could do that too.
He's like the other Kubo, I guess. Just hasn't produced as much as Kubo.
Under Pat, all things are possible.
Corey Baird, the other Kubo. I'm sure he's been wanting that to be put onto. That's his epithet right there. It's excellent stuff, Jason. I mean, you're in public relations. You should go be his agent. You can just be like, he's the other Kubo, guys. Come on.
Yeah.
But whatever these guys are doing and whoever out there, whatever position they're playing in, they are going to be doing it in a new kit. The legacy kit. How's that for a professional segue, man? I am just nailing this. This is my job interview here, I guess. I bought one of these kits because I needed a new kit, but I'm not sure if I like it or not. It has some good spots. So I thought we'd kind of put it into this place, this idea of one of you is going to love the kit and one of you is going to hate it. And we're going to start out about what is great about this kit. Brian Biedenbach.
You're putting me in a hard spot, man, because this is not a kit that I love.
It's because I read the rundown wrong. What is terrible about this kit, Brian?
I will say I love the colors of this kit, and the rest of it I hate. You want to start with that? All right. Look, I've never been a fan of the sash. I just don't love that. This one particularly. It's wide. I like that better than the narrow, like really thin sash going from shoulder to hip. But because it's so wide, it crunches the badge up on the left side. I just feel like the badge, the FC Cincinnati crest, is just kind of squeezed in there. It doesn't look like it really fits and meshes with this kit. The Mercy Health logo across the front, I just don't think they thought that out on how it's going to land within that sash. Maybe reposition it. So I don't know. It's just not one that I'm probably going to purchase. Like, I love the throwback with the diamonds and the orange, but man, some of it just looks like we went with the sash and then we tried to build around it and things just didn't fit where they hoped they would fit. So I'm not a big fan of this kit.
Long live the sash. The sash is awesome. I love this. I even back in the day, bought an LA Galaxy jersey just because it had the sash, right? When Beckham came.
Yeah.
I think it looks great. Obviously I like the colors because it's the colors that the team uses. So that's always a good thing. I think it's actually an optical illusion that the badge is crowded out. I think it's an optical illusion. I'm pretty sure it's in the same place they always put it. It does at first glance look like it's almost on the shoulder, but I think that's just an optical illusion with the way the sash comes down. I think it's great. I think the sash is a classic look. And this was supposed to kind of be the throwback heritage kind of legacy kit, right? That's what it's called. I don't know. I love it. I will still wait till it is clearance to buy it because I'm a cheapskate, but you do you.
Jeremy, to your point, I agree. The crest is probably in the same place. It just looks crowded, and that's what I didn't like about it.
And the Mercy Health logo being, I don't work for them. I don't care.
When I first saw it, the renderings of it, I thought that it looked like a Star Trek uniform. But now that I've seen it, I love Star Trek too, but now that I've seen it on the players, they put out a promo picture with Kevin Denke with it on. With the shorts, I think it works a lot better. I think it'll grow on me. I didn't like the River kit when it first came out, but after seeing it, I realized, oh, that's actually pretty nice. I do like, if you look at it and you kind of think back to, the original Bomb Pop jerseys that FC Cincinnati had back in USL, you can kind of see the inspiration there. You can see the inspiration from my all-time favorite kit was that USL one with the diamonds. That I think cannot be topped. You can see the inspiration there because there's some diamonds in the sash. So I like it. Looking at this year's MLS kits, I'd probably put it up there in the best, but it's not my favorite that FC Cincinnati's ever done.
This kit dog walks the River kit. Absolutely dog walks it.
Oh, I don't know about that. I like the River kit. I really like the River kit.
Is the River kit the one with the bacon across it? Is that a river?
Yeah, blue bacon.
The tire track across it, I think.
Oh, Jason, you brought up kits around the league, and we have a few minutes. Let's go around the horn really quick and talk about, maybe you can say your favorite, your least favorite, or you can just say something random about the kits around the league. That's why people come to Cincinnati Soccer Talk to hear our fashion advice. So kick us off with that, Jason. You have strong thoughts.
Sure. I'll just throw out there my favorites. Seattle usually has some pretty great kits. This year's is, I think, the best one in MLS. This weird, like, grayish blue. It kind of reminds me of the Seattle Kraken colors a little bit. And I'm always a fan of, like, city synergy for, like, the different sports teams. LA Galaxy's got this purple kit that they have for their alternate. My two least favorites so far, and I hate to say it, I really, really hate the RSL checker kit. It looks terrible. And I know a lot of people
everywhere are crying.
That one blows.
I really dislike it. They could have gone back to the yellow honey colored one. That would have been great. And I also, and it's not just because it's Columbus Crew, but I hate the new Crew kit. Because, and here's my reasoning, the Crew will not shut up about Goosebumps and R.L. Stein. And we get it. You're a mediocre city without a lot going on. You don't have a lot of famous people from there, but you've done 18 different tifos that are Goosebumps inspired. And now you could do a Goosebumps shirt. Figure something else out. The band OAR is from, I don't know, come up with a jam band college rock shirt.
The 21 Pilots kit.
Yeah, 21 Pilots kit. I don't know how you would do that.
It's just the Goosebump kit, but you just call it the 21 Pilots.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like cool rave colors that are glowing. See? It's just all marketing.
I'm dying. I am dying. What about you, Brian? Is there any entire cities or fan bases you just want to completely destroy, or is there another kit you love or hate?
No, I would say, man, if they came out with a cool 21 Pilots kit, I would love that kit. I wouldn't love the Crew, but I think I would love that kit. Jason said he's going to throw out the video that, like, I love this one. I'm just going to throw out a couple kits completely, right? Any kit with a collar is just out the door for me. I am not a fan. Like, I know it's classic. I know it's old school, but I'm not even going to look at a kit with a collar at this point. It just doesn't work for me. LAFC colors, I could do that. The collar, So I'm actually, Evander coming to Cincinnati, he's missing out, I think, on a great kit there in Portland. I think Portland was one of the top for me. I'm a guy, if you ever, you follow the show, if you watch us on YouTube much, I'm usually wearing black. That's just kind of my style. So kits that have a black base, I love. That's the thing that bothers me about Cincinnati's kits. Like, I wish I liked the third kit that they had in USL, the black one. That's a kit I would buy again. Let's come out with a third option, but the blue and orange, I don't think is going to change. So the Portland kit, I love. Charlotte was really close behind that. And I'll say this, the San Jose Earthquakes, I love that one. Minnesota United, I know people have been kind of torn, like, back and forth about their kits over the years. I was not a fan of last year's kit. I just thought it was too busy. There was too much going on. I kind of like this one because it's simple. It's similar to last year's. It's a bit of touch on that, but it's much more simple, and I really like that. So I put Portland, Charlotte, and the Earthquakes, and then maybe a fourth Minnesota there at the top.
Anything to add to that, Jeremy, and tell us why we're wrong or we're right?
Well, I mean, again, so first we hate the sash, now we hate collars.
Yeah.
Do you even
Well,
like
just-
soccer?
you-
What is this?
Do not give me FC Cincinnati. Please hear this. Do not give me a
just like a
sash
big
and
orange
a collar.
Just a big orange collar. That's what I want.
It will risk my fandom potentially.
That'll be our away kit next year.
Oh, goodness.
So I'm going to throw out the New England Revolution. Normally is just hot garbage in all facets of their branding, but I actually really enjoy their kit, partially because it's not even using the color scheme that they operate in. It's like a kind of like a mint green and some some navy and stuff like that. That looks really nice. And then I will echo Jason there. The Seattle Sounders kit is very nice. It's a cool pattern. It kind of paying homage to like the indigenous community in the Cascadia area. So that one's super sweet.
Awesome. And the only way to make a collar kit worse is by putting a button that's like a different color. That's St. Louis.
Like a red one?
Yeah, that St. Louis kit that is sponsored by Dog Chow is dog sausage. That's all I'm going to say. Let's get to our preview. Y'all, there is a game coming up, and it might be like practically in the middle of the night if you're in your 40s like me, because once you hit past 9:30, it's just the middle of the night, but it is happening. And their opponent, FC Cincinnati's opponent, FC Motagua out of Honduras, is kind of limping out several key pieces with injuries. You have midfielders Melendez and Jorge Serrano who have missed minutes, and that has kind of severely hindered this team's rhythm. Motagua's Rodrigo Osmendi and Diego Ledesma, though, are kind of their attacking duo, the pair of players that kind of make things happen for them going forward, and they've been pretty good in attack. In terms of FCC players, all of the team is fully cleared and on the CCC roster in terms of being eligible to play. Now, health-wise, obviously, we know Matt Miazga and Nick Hagland are still not totally training with the team as far as we know. Dado Valenzuela still missing time with a quad or a hamstring, that's it. And then Teenage Hadebe kind of just working back. We talked about this match kind of being like throw out the lineup out the window. Who knows what's going to happen? Plus, they're in Honduras. Plus, you just introduced Evander. So we're going to go around the horn here. And I just want to get one big thought from each of you about essentially what you're looking for in this match. It can be a certain thing, a score line, a certain area of play, a certain player. It could be just to see how sweet or terrible those kits look in the CCC footage. So let's start with Brian. What are you looking for in this match?
I want to see Kevin Denke get on the board. I want to see what he brings right off the bat. He comes in with a lot of hype around him, Golden Boot winner. I want to see him get on the board early. We've seen high-paying number 9 struggle from the get-go, and I just want to see him off to a hot start.
That's a good one. He did score in the preseason finally. So that was good to see, because I was starting to get a little nervous that he just hadn't hitting anything. Yeah. Not that that means anything. Aaron Bupenza scored buckets last preseason. Mm-hmm. We saw that worked out. But that is a very good shout. What about you, Jason?
Nobody get hurt. That's my key. Everybody stay healthy. Other than that, I am interested to see if Evander gets playing time and how much. I don't think he's going to get much, but I'd like to see him get some and see how he integrates himself into the lineup.
Excellent. It would be huge if he was able to get some meaningful minutes, just so we know he's out there and ready to go, right? Although, like we've all said, not sure that bears anything about whether he's ready for the season. Jeremy, what are you looking for in this match?
Well, yeah, I want to echo what Jason said, because this is the field that the U.S. national team has had to play on. This is the national stadium in Honduras, so we've seen matches on this field before, and they can be rough. And when clubs in America, when the national team goes outside to all parts of CONCACAF, you can play in some rough surfaces that lead to some not super appetizing matches from an aesthetic standpoint. So I hope we don't see that. I hope that no one gets injured. And yeah, I mean, I think mainly it is like I want to see all those new guys kind of get a little bit of a little taste of all of them there when they get out there. But I hope they just roll out there and assert their dominance.
Yeah, it would be nice to see them just get a good hefty win. And so you just kind of start to feel like you're cruising into that next round. You all can watch the match this Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern time on FS2 if you're looking for the English broadcast, or on VIX, which is a $5 a month app if you want to watch in Spanish. $5 is probably worth it just to watch that one game. You can bone up on your Duolingo while you're at it. While I'm talking about it, drop into the comments or get with us on social media and let us know what you're going to be looking for in this match, and follow us during the game for updates. If you want to be a supporter of Cincinnati Soccer Talk, now's a good time to mention that you can support us in making content like this. And they might even be able to get somebody in here that actually knows what they're doing hosting the show. You can head over to cincinnati-soccertalk.com/support. From there, you're able to sign up for our Patreon page or make a one-time donation. A $5 a month Patreon subscription enters you into our Growler Cup competition, where you can pick the outcome of FCC's MLS matches. And then over the course of the season, you accumulate points and you could win some sweet prizes. And the first round of the Growler Cup starts on Saturday. So make sure you head on over to our page and become a supporter. Guys, there's been some other news in the soccer world. Like, apparently there is another league in America. What? Is this real? Is this like the XFL? Jason, what is going on?
Yeah. So on, I think it was Thursday or Friday, it was about Thursday of last week, I think, USL announced that they are exploring starting a Division I league in the 2027-2028 timeframe. So as we know, USL has a Division II league, the championship, which FC Cincinnati used to play in, USL League One, which is Division III. They also have a Division I women's league, USL Super League. And now they're looking at starting a men's Division I league. So there are some hurdles to overcome. I actually have, the pro league standards. If you want to hear them, it just real quick and dirty. They're not hard to overcome, I don't think, in a place like the United States, but basically you need to have 12 teams, which they will. Your majority owner needs to have a net worth of $40 million, which I would think is not that difficult in most metro areas. Your teams need to be located in Eastern, Central, and Pacific time zones. You can add other time zones as well. And here's the biggest ones. At least 75% of the league's teams must be based in metro areas with 1 million population. And the biggest one, I think the biggest hurdle, is all stadiums need to have a capacity of 15,000, which, as of speaking today, there's only 2 USL championship teams that have that. Some have stadium plans like Indy, Detroit City. Some of them also have stadiums that can be expanded, like Louisville's can be expanded up to, I think, 18,000 or so. So yeah, it looks like USL is trying to compete, I guess, with Major League Soccer.
Cool. Sounds like a slightly better version of USL Championship, with what I'm assuming is some of those teams are going to be bumped up to the big times, right? So all we're doing is, like, I would love it to be this situation where this could happen. It's super, successful and just kind of completely changes the landscape. I feel like we've seen a lot of leagues come in with the notion of they were going to change the landscape, and they don't exist anymore for the most part. So we saw that. We've seen this time and time again. I think the biggest problem I have is, what markets are these teams going to be in? Because Jason, as you said, you have to kind of hit some benchmarks just from that standpoint. But to be in markets that aren't already with an MLS club, because you would assume you would avoid those. I don't know. We'll see. MLS didn't avoid you, so I guess turnabout's fair play, But then, like, so like Louisville's not Is that a big enough market for D1? It's kind of right on the cusp, right?
Yeah, spoiler alert, I'm launching a YouTube channel sometime, so I did some research on this. Louisville does meet the benchmark. There's 1 point something million that live there. And I think you're right. There are markets that you could move into right now. You've got big markets like Phoenix, Tampa, Detroit, Indy, Orange County.
Indy makes the most sense right now.
But at the same time, I think a thing to remember is in 2027, USL's media rights deal is up. So if we've seen USL every year when MLS gets ready to drop some news, like Messi's come into the league or they're starting their season, USL always does something to try to get some press. Usually they say, we are forming a committee to see if we need to form another committee to ask some guys if we should talk about pro rel. And then it never goes anywhere. And they've done that for a decade. I'm dubious is this going to actually come to fruition? I would love for it to, but
sure, no, it'd be awesome.
Yeah. But it's also fun to see the people who are anti-MLS pro-Relanon bros like put all of their hopes and dreams on yet another franchise league.
Those dudes needed a cold shower after this news came out.
Oh yeah.
Okay, 40 million is the benchmark you need to have for just the sanctioning. But if they're trying to compete with MLS, most MLS clubs, their ownership group is billions of dollars. Yep. So we're long past this like window where you can just kind of get a couple millionaires together and go toe to toe. Like you're dealing with NFL ownership groups, you're dealing with massive consortiums of just all the money in major cities being lumped into to these MLS clubs now. Like, I find this to be a pretty difficult endeavor for even USL, who I think has done so many great things and has created this very healthy, lower league system, which I think the way they have it now is great. And I think introducing promotion and relegation through that would be cool.
Absolutely.
That all was fine. I don't know if you can go out there and say, we're going to do something that's going to rival MLS and actually have the bullets in the chamber to actually even do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, one thing we've been trying to do at Cincinnati Soccer Talk is cover a little bit more of this sort of periphery stuff. That's why we wanted to talk about this on the podcast. We have Cliff Adams has an article previewing the Motagua match that's coming out Tuesday morning on our website. And we recently hosted a Patreon only live stream, and we're looking to do more of that if you become a Patreon supporter. But we also have like Christy going out and attending SEC's new food and merch event at TQL. And so keep an eye out for that content. And then of course, Jersey Swap. We have Jeff Tebbets, who covers each match, but also did some CONCACAF Champions Cup stuff. And I think we have Jeff here to tell us a little bit about this week.
Hey guys, Jeff Tebbets here, giving you a small glimpse into this week's Jersey Swap. We're finally starting the MLS season with brand new kits, brand new spirits, and a brand new Brazilian centerpiece in the midfield. One of the immediate tests for this 2025 FCC team are the New York Red Bulls, fresh off their MLS Cup final appearance. We'll sit down with Daniel Rebane from Area Sportsnet to get to know this revised squad. Is it still energy drink soccer, or is it the sugar-free version? We'll get the lowdown as we prepare for Saturday's kickoff.
Thanks for that, Jeff. And as we prepare for Saturday's kickoff, we're going to get to our final thoughts. But first, we're going to let you know that you can get in touch with us and tell us about how you hate that the show went so long with Coach as host. You can tweet us at Cincy Soccer Talk, email us at feedback@cincinnatissoccertalk.com, or our new email address, feedback@cincinnatissoccertalk.com. That says the same thing. I'm just reading the rundown. I don't know what is happening here.
Nailed it.
Okay.
Great.
Sorry. I was like, we have a new email address. I'm just learning this as I read this. But again, sometimes we know what we're doing. And this is one of those times because we are going to predict FCC's season. So get out your pens and paper, write this down so you can hold it over our heads. We're going to talk about where do we think FCC will finish in the East. That might mean what we think they're going to win. That might mean a place. Brian, let's start with you.
You are muted, good sir.
My goodness, look at this. Coach, I was just going to say that last year we got asked almost every week, go longer, go longer, go longer. So if you think you're writing your way out of this, I think people are wanting you to stick around. So as far as my prediction here, I would have said, and I think I said on the live show, before all these pieces came into place, we're going to get in the playoffs. We're going to finish just above the playoff line. I would have said 5th or 6th in the East. I think with what our front office has done in recent weeks with our recent signings of Lukas Engel and Evander and Flores coming in as a U22 initiative, they want to make a push and they're not going to be satisfied with anything but hardware. I don't think with all the new pieces, we're going to get off to a good enough start to make a push for the Shield at the end of the season. I think you got to start fast and keep it going. At least that's what we saw a couple of seasons ago. But I'm going to go 2nd in the East. I think we're going to get hot by midseason and just roll, avoiding any injuries, hopefully. I'm going to say 2nd in the East this season.
2nd in the East, challenging for silverware. Brian, thanks for being on tonight, my friend.
Yes, sir.
Jason, tell Brian why he's wrong or why he's right. I don't know.
My predictions are always wrong, so that always gives me some, wiggle room to either be underperform or overperform. I'm going to go, I'll say 3rd in the East. I think there's a couple of teams. I'm looking at Charlotte, who I think is going to be like surprisingly good this year. They've made some good moves this offseason. And I think it's going to take a little bit of time for the new pieces to get together. So it might be a little rough getting started. But at the end of the year, I think 3rd in the East, just like last year, is pretty acceptable to me.
We have a 2nd and a 3rd. Jason, thanks for being on tonight. And Jeremy, tell us why we're all wrong.
No, 2nd or 3rd is actually what I was going to say. I think it's going to be a very similar repeat to last season. I do think and hope that the second half of the season isn't a drop-off in competency and production as it was last season. I think it's going to be a much stronger, more balanced season. I think they're going to compete for everything. I'm feeling really optimistic about this. I want to throw out one thing before we kind of jump off here and end the show. I do want to send condolences to we're playing the Red Bulls this week, and one of our brethren from the Seeing Red podcast, Joe Goldstein. They've been doing that podcast forever. Him and Mark Fishkin, and Joe passed away. I believe this past week. So just wanted to send the condolences out to them and the fan base over there. And Mark, I know Mark has been carrying the torch in MLS for forever. So just kind of our thoughts and prayers with those guys.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That is really important to do. And thanks for bringing the heat and being on tonight.
I try.
And the best part about being the host tonight is I don't have to give predictions because I'm just here to facilitate the conversation. I do want to facilitate you tuning back into this same feed, probably on maybe Thursday, maybe Friday. We're going to get a shorter show out recapping that FC Motagua match. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and keep an eye out on social medias in case we go live with that one. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks for your support. And as we get the season kicked off, we will see you next time.